See, this is the real secret of life, to be completely engaged with the here and now.
Welcome to the Human Derek Podcast, connecting you with the 7 fundamentals of life that will take you to the next level.
Everybody wants to fulfill the highest, truest expression of yourself.
It was all a dream.
Today is about the power of you.
You've now entered
the Human Derek Podcast.
Testing. Oh, it's making that creaky noise. Is it working? Probably gonna have to edit that out. I don't know. If you're still listening, that's cool. Hello. I'm gonna get way better at these intros so that I'm not talking to myself the whole time with some background noise. Hello, everybody. Okay, we got 2 businesses to plug here at the beginning. Yeah, they're getting a plug because they're freaking awesome. And then we'll jump into the intro, talk about my super cool guest today. Obviously feeling pretty good right now, as you can tell. I'm feeling good most of the time anyways. I think if you're living life right, if you're doing hard things on a regular and really put things in perspective, you can feel, relatively great on a regular basis. The truth will set you free. I'm going to get in trouble for that. I already feel like it was kind of weird. Whatever. So, hey, first and foremost, they haven't fired me yet. I'm still a big fan. In fact, I know some of you have already tried this out. Been getting some messages on Instagram, some text messages, some story posts. Guadalupe Coffee Roasters, still my go-to coffee on a daily basis. Great people that produce a great product and do great things. Check out Guadalupe Coffee Roasters. You get 10% off if you decide you want to check out their beans. Fun fact, I've been using pre-ground coffee for a little bit. Not the norm for me. Usually like to grind my beans fresh each morning, smell them, and take a big whiff out of the can. Just like that. And go, I love my coffee. Thank you so much for my coffee beans. It's simple things. If I didn't have a lot of other stuff in terms of food, if I just had my coffee, that feel good juice from Mother Nature, I'd be okay with that. In fact, that's often the only thing I have to start the day anyways. I find that restricting my food intake oftentimes make me feel pretty good. Just depends on what the activities are that morning, that day, the day before. Depends on what else is happening in life. But regularly not eating breakfast has been a benefit to me as I grow in age and wisdom. Guadalupe Coffee Roaster, super cool coffee company. If you don't know how to spell that, I'm not going to sound it out. You should probably, take some guesses. The Google's pretty good, but let's see, kind of like guacamole, but Guadalupe. Guadalupe Coffee Roasters. If you type in the name Derek, Derek, you get 10% off when you try their coffee. Who else? Oh, definitely get a plug. This one for sure is going to automatically offend 50% of the people that go and check them out. Or not. I think it's going to be about 50%. It's usually right down the middle. There's some percentage of people that don't get offended. In fact, the people that are closest to me, I find, are not often offended by these types of things. But I met some really cool people, and I'm a super big fan of their art and what they stand for. It's one of my favorite things about humans and communication is I strongly believe that we're oftentimes, as people, even in conflict, really trying to say the same thing or communicate the same thing. And where we get lost or have the tension is the breakdown in communication. For the most part, people that I know want, each other to succeed. They want great things. It's kind of the rare exception that sort of has that devious evil streak, but I kind of run from that, unless I'm forced into a situation, whether it's through business or something like that, or I have to, really stand firm and show some tough love to kind of help shine some light on the ways of the world being actually, for the most part, really good. And So anyways, I'm kind of on a rabbit hole already just talking about this company, but they're called Red Pill 45. If you don't know what Red Pill stands for, I thought it was like some Matrix stuff. I instantly thought like, okay, red pill, blue pill, green pill, whatever, enter the Matrix. Kind of is in a sense. They have a really, really cool background stories. In fact, on an upcoming episode, you'll get to meet Jamie, who I just am super impressed by as a person and her journey through life. Very similar to my experience in terms of what I, was sort of taught growing up. Not as extreme, but just around politics and belief systems, and how through my own experience of growing out of certain environments, a lot of it shifted. Now, I'm not, if you've ever had a conversation with me about the last election, you know that I voted for Kanye. I stand by that vote in a very, very strong way. Still think it was the best choice, or at least it would have been the most entertaining choice. And, why not have some entertainment in politics, some good entertainment, some quality stuff. Anyways, Red Pill 45, redpill45.com. They have, I have one of their t-shirts. I was wearing it the other night coming back from a dirt biking event. By the way, dirt biking events are kind of pretty interesting. I hadn't been to one like that before, and it was some pretty high energy moments, pretty cool. And anyway, so redpill45.com, the Red Pill sisters, they have some just really hands down, and it's quality. Like the shirt I was wearing, it felt so soft. It felt so good to put on the shirt, and it made me laugh. I don't know if it's just where my mind was at that day, spending so much time around a bunch of dirt bike riders, but the shirt gave me a pretty hard giggle. It's probably not something I would have imagined even, picking up. But they have some really cool stuff. And I think going back to the truth thing and the communication, in my take, what they really stand for is, their version of the truth. And oftentimes I remind myself there's 3 versions of the truth. There's my truth, there's your truth, and then the truth. And so if you can find it, some of you may already be on their website checking it out, redpill45.com, going, this is some pretty badass stuff. Some of you are looking at it going, Derek, what are you plugging? Either way, if you decide you're going to pick something up from their site, you can use, again, the code Derek, DEREK. I think you're finding some consistency here in the promo codes, but DEREK. That'll give you, I think it'll give you 10% off if you decide you want to pick something up. I hope I'm right on that. I probably should have double checked my notes beforehand. If it's less, send me a receipt and I'll just owe you something for being wrong. I'll put that out there. I'm in trouble for that. I gotta make sure I have like no caffeine in my system before I do this stuff, because I'm just gonna blurt some stuff out from a good place, but I know better than that. So redpill45.com, Derek gets you 10% off, some super cool attire, some apparel, some artwork. They do marketing and stuff too. So anyways, if you haven't checked them out yet, you might. Today's episode, this is episode number 3. So much love and appreciation for episodes 1 and 2. Really happy to put this out there. I believe you'll find that the audio quality has just gotten drastically better over the first 3 episodes. Now, there's no video on this one, so if you are watching this on YouTube, there's not going to be a video this time. I got kind of scared of video on episode 3 because there were some video hangups on episode 2. In the future, they're all video. Some of them are Zoom, some of them are in person, but the equipment has steadily been upgraded with each episode. You'll find the precision, the audio, all of it a lot more quality, and that just continues to improve. Love the love, by the way. Thank you so much for investing your time, sharing these thoughts with the guests that come on and with myself. And anytime you have comments, or you have someone you think would make a great guest, someone that'd be fun, entertaining to talk to and provide some good just things, some good energy, some good, I hate the word value. I feel like it's really overused in kind of like the business world with all of the investments and startup, like what's your value proposition? But it's ultimately what it's about. We got to make the most of our time in this world. I really got into podcasts from doing dishes. I, really didn't like doing dishes or folding laundry, and found that slapping in the headphones while I was doing these things, there's a term for it. You may know it. It's called found time. But really, if anything you believe in terms of a guest or someone you want to send this way, or some valuable feedback, like someone today was like, hey man, the audio broke up on YouTube part 2. I'm like, oh, I know. but got that fixed in the future. So if you notice stuff like that, we're still in the early phases here. I mean, there's less than 10 total episodes recorded. So this is episode number 3, and constantly looking to make this the best quality experience. So I imagine if you're still listening, you had some fun on episodes 1 and 2. Maybe it's your first episode. So enjoy. What's it all about? Malte Niebelschuetz. And I've known this guy for like 3 years, and I'm pretty sure I just totally messed up his last name. He's the founder of a fantastic company named Shore Buddies. It's okay that I messed up his name too. He's German, so you're going to notice some of the words you're like, what is that guy saying? I'm going to give him a hard time because I love him to death, because that's how we met. And I think that story is actually in the podcast about how we met, where he was giving me a hard time, but it's all love. It goes back to that truth thing. You know, when you can be honest and be humble, you really find some great things come out of it. And my experience is this great friendship with Malte has come out of it. Now, Shore Buddies, I mean, it's a pretty cool company. He's going to talk about it in the episode. We're going to get into that a bit. Also some, just things about icons, the hero's journey in life. Why are we so attracted to legends and stories? I swear we're not arguing. There's a couple spots where it might sound like we're arguing. We're probably arguing, difference of opinions, but whatever. I'm trying not to argue too much with guests on the show, but that's just my personality sometimes. I got to get in there and dig into that good stuff. We talk a little bit about rest and action and what that means in life. When's a good time to keep going? When's time to take the foot off the gas pedal? Not everybody agrees on that. Maybe for different people, it means different things. We talk a bit about impact. Malte's a guy that with his business, with the work that he does, he has a big purpose, and he's impacting not just our generation in a big way, but the future generations. And that's something that is really important to me. I oftentimes, I don't have any kids, but I oftentimes think about, what it is that we all do as adults or humans or people on this planet that, makes the next generation better than we are in terms of understanding, in terms of, emotional intelligence, relationships, communication, all these things, because how we act and how we interact, absolutely, we pass that down. And so super cool guy, Mr. Malte Niebelschuetz. Welcome to episode 3.
See, this is the real secret of life, to be completely engaged with the here and now.
What's up, Malte? Welcome to the studio. Hey, I want you to... So this straw, real quick, tell me about this thing, man. So Malte brought me this really incredible... There's more than one in here. There's multiple straws.
Yeah, it's a set of 4. Like okay. It's a full-on family set. And the idea really is that, especially now we have so much takeout, right? Like when we support restaurants, we still want to do that. We're at home, and like we're using straws, and there's really no need to use a plastic straw. You cannot recycle them. They end up in the landfill, or worse, they even like end up in the ocean. And with our company, Shore Buddies, we really want to, put our money where our mouth is and really like stay by what we say in terms of using reusable items. And reusable straw is, I think, a huge difference you can make. That's, that crazy that they still use 500 million plastic straws in the US every single day, right? It's just like one plastic straw, say 500 million people.
So what I'm holding here is because some people can't see this. We're not doing video this time, but I have it's a blue plastic straw. It's called Straw Buddy. It says the world's first one-click open reusable straw. And it's freaking awesome. I mean, he handed me these straws and it's like, all right, cool, man, reusable straws. I'm into it. I have some like chrome metal ones, and I have these even little straw brushes that I have to scrape in there if I want to clean them. This snaps right open so that you can just clean it easier. You don't got to worry about...
Yeah, you can rinse it underwater. You can put it in a dishwasher. And for me, it was, I personally don't really use straw. Every single time I have them, I'll just like put them out, and I don't want to use them. I just don't like the sucking on that stuff. Anyways, but...
Watch out for the sucking on stuff.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's dangerous times. But... I really never understood, like, I thought it was so inconvenient, those bamboo and those stainless steel straws and those glass straws, that you really have to just take a brush out and go through that. And like when I use the straw for like a smoothie, that's actually when I do use a straw. it kind of like it's really hard to clean it out, right? Like sometimes with the brushes, like what even comes out there, and is it like really clean? And once was at a trade show and discovered those straws, and they're just amazing. You flip them open, you rinse them underwater, or you put them even in a dishwasher. I think it's the coolest thing ever. So it's kind of funny. Like girlfriend at that time, she told me, Malte, you have an awesome company. I love all your products, but these stores literally would be the only thing I would buy from you.
Well, that's cool. You're selling stuff that isn't even yours, man. That's awesome. Well, by the way, I appreciate you coming by. It's fun. I guess we've known each other for about almost like 2 years. You were actually one of the...
It must be longer than that.
Yeah, you could closer to 3. You were one of the first people I met when I moved here, and that's actually a pretty funny story. I know people have laughed at it before.
See, and you still hang out with me, man. Must have done something right.
And it was funny even how you responded. So we met at an event. It was like a Friday night, kind of like business mixer thing. These really cool guys. What's the name of that?
It was the Team Fun holiday party or something like that, I believe, or maybe just like their office kickoff or office moving in, something like that.
Yeah, and I show up in I'm in like, and this is San Diego, so I'm getting used to San Diego. I'm used to wearing like suits and super uptight dress, and I show up to this event and I've got like really nice high-end dress shoes and like these really nice jeans, and then I'm wearing a soccer jersey because it's World Cup time.
It was the World Cup. Yes, it was the World Cup. Yeah, of course it wasn't winter.
Do you remember how you greeted me?
No, like I remember the story, but I want to hear what was the first words that I created.
So it's not a secret. Like I lived in Brazil for a while, and I lived in a city called Belém, Belem in northern Brazil. Super cool city, so much fun. Like it's almost, I describe it as having like a metropolitan city, like a New York or a San Diego, like in the Amazon. So you're like, oh, that's a mango tree. It's pretty cool. There's, not monkeys everywhere. It's kind of funny. People go, oh, I live in this, and people think there's nothing but monkeys and fruit in Brazil. What part of Brazil did you live in, Derek? And I'm like, I lived in Belém. And they're like, oh man, there are monkeys and fruit there. But so I'm wearing this soccer jersey from that city because I don't know a lot about the World Cup or soccer. Like I like playing soccer. I'm not amazing at it. I don't know the history. So I'm wearing this local city soccer, football jersey to this party during World Cup time. And Malta's from Germany. We'll probably talk about that soon. And he's like, what kind of jersey is that? Or I don't know, you started calling me out on the jersey, and I'm like, oh, it's from the city Belém in Brazil. And do you remember what happened next? Or
I want to hear the story from your part. Like I know like what I kind of said, but like I really want to hear your full-on experience on that.
Yeah, I remember you just saying like, what the frick are you doing? Basically, like you can't wear a club, like a city club jersey during World Cup month. It's about national pride. And you just kind of ripped into me, but I could tell it was from a like, how does this guy not know this? And you're really passionate about soccer. And so I thought it was pretty funny. I was like, hey, I actually had no idea. Like, that's pretty cool information, man. Thanks for educating me on that. And then you just looked at me like, how come this guy's not offended or like run off to cry? And then you're like, hey, it's pretty cool you didn't get offended by that. And I'm like, yeah, I'm actually super curious. Like I like to learn stuff, so thanks for that. And it was, and that's how I remember us meeting.
Yeah. So, and then that's 100% true. And I'm sure like, you followed that advice like later on. But for you guys out there, if you don't know that, so like in every popular soccer nation, right? And Brazil is definitely one of them, but all over Europe, like Germany, England, Italy, France, wherever, when the tournament is going on, like all the local clubs just like don't matter anymore, right? Everyone has their passion, has their local club, and wears usually their colors really with pride. But when the World Cup is on, like the soccer nations come together, right? It's like everyone has their team, and Germany obviously cheering on for Germany, and then whole France cheers on for whole France, and whole Brazil cheers on for whole Brazil. So you just don't bring like the club jerseys to the World Cup.
Yeah, and that's, my experience is American football. So there's no global American football. It's called American football. So it's the San Diego Chargers once upon a time, but it's the who we had just had in the Super Bowl, the Tampa Bay
Tampa
Buccaneers.
Bay, yeah, Tom Brady. Did you see that actually today? So apparently, like that was for me the best throw of the entire Super Bowl. So they had a boat parade today in Tampa Bay, and they have the big Lombardi Trophy, right? And then apparently Tom Brady was throwing it like across boats to like Gronk, and he caught it, and it was like for me that was the play of the game. Like 2 days later.
That's about man, I know I'm gonna some people are gonna be like, what's this guy talking about? But I don't really watch football anymore. Like I just gave it up a while ago. I'm so much more into it. It turned me off for a lot of reasons, but so I tried to turn it on and watch a little bit of it because I'm like, all right, people are talking about it. Like a lot of people I know are into football, and I was working on some projects over the weekend, and I turned it on and it just felt like noise. I just couldn't do it. Like I used to be so passionate about it, and just experienced it over time turned me away from it. And so I'm super into people being legendary, like what that guy has accomplished to be consistent, as you know, as a business owner. And we'll talk about that, like a little bit more about your business, what you got going on. But there's one hit wonders in the music world or anything, and you can just show up one day and be good at something. But to be consistent, not just like consistently average, to dominate a sport as much as he has for however long it's been is truly exceptional. So I absolutely think that's
how
great.
old is Tom Brady? He's like what, 42, 43?
I was like 752, but yeah, he's for an NFL athlete.
Yeah, but I agree, and it's similar. I mean, I've never really been too much into football. I mean, I understand the game, and I learn it, and I appreciate the plays. But what's really is like all the side stories, right? That's, I feel like with everything, especially with sports, that what keeps us exciting, and the legends are the one who like write the most interesting stories, right? Like we have those icons in kind of every sport. In one sport is like you have more of those icons over time, right? But like if we take soccer, for example, like now you have Cristiano Ronaldo and Leo Messi, who kind of like pretty much dominated the entire era, and this is kind of like now just about to end, and it's gonna be interesting who's gonna fill that gap. And with Tom Brady, it's kind of like the same in football, like for so long, that consistency, like after accomplishing everything, after winning everything, it's kind of like still that drive, because it's hard work, man. It's not easy. Like a professional athlete, it's a lot of discipline, it's a lot of drive, it's a lot of passion, like all the, like everything. You need to put literally everything in it. And doing that for so long over years, it's quite remarkable. And I think what he really needed, and I'm really happy he did that, is like that he switched teams, right? Like he left kind of like I don't know if it's yet now the end of his career, but at the let's say at the autumn, I don't want to say fall, at the autumn of his career, now he's taking on this new challenge. I think that's like, what really big legendary athletes do too, right? Like it's really, let's find a new challenge. I could have stayed here, like could have ended my career here, would have already been a legend, but like making that switch. And what I appreciate actually most about him is that he picked a city that has his initials, right? So like whenever the game was, and that was the first game I watched all season, was the Super Bowl, and I saw like TB is like, really? Now they just like have Tom Brady, but yeah, Tampa Bay. Someone had explained it to me.
I didn't realize that, dude. That is freaking incredible. And it's when I think of athletes, I really think of an athletic role as like an entrepreneurial type role. I'm a huge fan of mixed martial arts. And Dana White, the president of the UFC, he constantly talks about how being part of the UFC is an opportunity. Because there are some fighters that he calls and he's like, hey, they're not ready for a fight. Like they took some time off. They're not ready. I work with, for a long time, better half of like the last 6-7 years, even a little bit before that, like 2014, 2021, like just mostly entrepreneurial people. And when you think of like sacrifice to make something happen, like athletes have to sacrifice a lot of things to do that, whether it's travel on the weekend or give up birthdays. And entrepreneurs have to do that same thing if they want to be successful. There's a sense of sacrifice now for reward later. And I thought of that because one, just football players, like they're practicing Sundays, their game day, right? So they're working 6-7 day weeks during the football season. That's a huge sacrifice. Their family has to be on board, their friends, people around them, like have to understand what that means. In the UFC, they've been doing fights on this thing called Fight Island, and there's a quarantine in order to travel internationally. Different countries where people are coming from have different quarantine rules when they go back in. And there was a fighter recently, and I can't think of her name, but she went and had this fight, and then it was revealed afterwards like it was her daughter's 3rd birthday. And I thought, like, you're right. If you're a big, like, you want to be on the biggest show in the world in terms of mixed martial arts, and arguably the stats are competing with some of the other biggest sports in terms of top 5 in the world with the pay-per-view ratings and the deal with the ESPN. There's 2 types of people. There's someone that's going to go, there's maybe 3 types, but someone that's going to go, Dana, I'd love to have that fight on the 5th, but it's my daughter's 3rd birthday on the 3rd. And I think I'm just going to do that because I won't be able to make it for quarantine. Or there's someone that goes, I'm going to find a way to make my daughter's birthday amazing around this incredible opportunity they have. And some people could argue against that and say, well, you can't, miss your daughter's 3rd birthday for something like that. But the reward and the freedom you get for that in terms of, she could have taken 2-3 weeks, a month off after that if she wanted and give her daughter a birthday month. But sometimes people don't recognize those things, and we all feel a bit different. What are some, it kind of makes me think about what you do, and you just shared something with me when we were getting together to come over here. But what do you think about sacrifice in terms of building a business?
I think the analogy is actually really good. Yeah, that it's kind of like the pro athlete. And I remember growing up in Germany, it's funnily, I grew up in the only city I feel in the country where we didn't have a professional soccer team, but we had a professional hockey team. So surprisingly, I grew up like playing hockey, ice hockey, and really loved it. It's a great sport. And I was kind of on track, right? Going through all the youth teams and then being 16 years old, and hockey is not that big of a thing in Germany, right? So the sacrifice was that we were the youth team of the first league hockey team, and there were I think 16 around the country. So we were playing all the other youth teams, right? So and that could only happen on the weekend. So it training, I want to say 3 times a week during the week, and then at weekends you had your games. And it was that you have to be pretty much 8 hours on a bus to go. Let's say we were going to Munich, 8 hours on the bus. You show up there, you have to leave Friday or Saturday, super early morning, 8 hours on the bus. You arrive you exhausted, usually get your ass kicked. So I don't remember ever that we won the away games, and it was the same in the entire league, right? Everyone was just, all the teams was everyone was winning at home, but the away games were not working. And at one point it was, you're 16, 17 years old, and I made this decision, really you have to you put more in, and for a slight chance to really get professional. I just didn't want to dedicate really everything just to that sport. I mean, was really you have to be all in or nothing, right? For everyone who ever played any sort of sport has been close to really being professional, it's that step is huge, right? Recreational, and then semi-professional, but then really going professional, that's an all-in job. And I think it's the same with business. And what really defines success is always the delayed gratification, right? That you're able to okay, I'm doing this because later on I will have this or that, right? So that's why I keep saying in business, it's really important to always have a North Star, to have a why you're doing this. And you have to be passionate. Otherwise you don't have the resilience, to deal with what is coming. And you have to be consistent. It's you have to do it. You have to be, the Tom Brady 756 years every single day, get out of bed and, do your routines and do your thing. And but what I feel lately too still is we are too hard on ourselves a lot of times as entrepreneurs, I feel. And just this morning, actually, I saw this great what is it called? Like a meme or motivational like image or something like that, where it's pretty much that don't be too hard on yourself today, right? Like just today was today. Like not every day is perfect. Not every day is at 100%, but every day is a new chance.
I got this super cool guy that I'm working with. His name is Mike Glimpse. He's based out of Arizona, and there's a company called Cutco that has just produced some like incredible people that I have in my life. And I never sold knives. They're like a knife company. Essentially, they sell us cutlery. I have some really cool Cutco knives that were gifted to me from another really cool company I worked with. But they have a way of teaching people like how to develop some of those things. And him and I were talking about this morning, actually, because I was like, man, I've been so on point for so many years. And I know that the sacrifices, the going to bed early, the like discipline of food, the discipline of thinking, planning ahead, weeks, months, preparing for things, rehearsing for stuff in the mirror when people are out, celebrating, like all this work I put into it. And I was kind of like just, feeling like I'm operating some days at 90% or 85%. I've been so used to being on. We were talking about this morning. He's like, you're basically a crazy person if you think that over long stretches of time, you're going to operate at 100%. He said, if you look at a factory, like they get excited about consistently operating at 80% or whatever number he threw out there.
80-20 principle, brother.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's another fascinating one. That was it. Pareto's principle. Pareto's principle. Yeah, because that's a whole nother thing. But you're right. I think that's one thing that the last year has helped me with is the progress over perfection type of thinking, because there's no such thing as perfect, but I'm a huge fan of, if you're going to do something, do it right. And so where is that middle ground of like, this is good enough to put out there?
Yeah. It's a good question. I have to say I'm like a big preacher of the other approach. I always say execution over perfection. Mm-hmm. It's like ideas, there are millions, a dozen, and the ones that are executed, that's the important thing. So people, I believe, and I see it very, very often, just have like they don't think the time is ever ready to do this, to execute. Although like the execution isn't like just making progress, it's making steps, like that's the consistency. And the fun thing is you are getting better, by just doing it. Like progress, like inaction is like the ultimate killer to any type of success. And I have a consumer product, right? And I always say, like, with a consumer product, if you don't hate your first product, you're launching too late. It's really that.
Yeah, and that's I'm just going to bring up all these super cool guys that I've been working with over the years. But there's this guy named Dave Duran. He's the CEO of a company called Best Version Media. I mean, the company is incredible in terms of like how big they are and the impact. And like when I worked with him first back in 2015. And pretty much everything I'd touched for a period of time was just like it was good. And so what you're talking about with the progress over perfection thing, like I think of this, yeah, it's a fascinating thing. I guess, I was going with that is he one time talked to me about when people are really good at something right off the bat, it can be their biggest struggle is when they get to those off days and being able to bring it back, like working through that. Because like I had a lot of things that I've touched over the years that instantly they were gold. And so hitting things that didn't go well caused me the most growth versus, all right, if I do things in a certain way, I launch it, boom, it crushes it right off the bat. Now I'm X amount into it and I'm struggling. How do I recover from that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's I know what you mean. It's like you're hitting success too early, kind of like having success is not hard. Repeating it and staying successful is the challenge. And that's really applies to businesses too, right? Like starting a business is just not difficult. Like maintaining it and then keeping it going and growing it, that's the real challenge. And I remember like a lot of people told me at the beginning when I just started, oh, that's so cool, you started this, isn't that? It's like, yeah, I'm still people say that, but like people will look a little bit more behind the curtain. There's more to it. But back to the off days. What I really learned probably a couple of years ago, it's kind of like how you train a muscle, right? And it's you really grow when you rest. Like sometimes we just keep going and keep going and keep going, right? And all the thing we know about like being athletes, like your muscle really develops more strength and grows in resting status, right? You stretch it, you bring it up there, and then when you relax, that's when you grow. And I think we need that. We cannot like go at a 250 miles an hour pace 24/7.
Okay, but I mean that's weird, right? To go, well, inaction is going to kill, an outcome because you have to be active. Activity is one of my favorite words just in general. I keep finding it all over the place in terms of whether it's athletes, whether it's business. And then we're going, well, you have to rest to grow. I mean, how do you know when too much rest? How do you know? Like, what's too much rest? What's not enough rest? What's not enough activity? Like, how do you even measure those things?
I think measuring is really a difficult thing, right? Like you can measure like certain outcome, you can measure certain results, but like going and moving and resting is you really need to be able to listen to your body and listen to the signs and just kind of like read there. And I mean, we're all still struggling. Not that I have all the answers, but one thing I always compare is kind of like, think about a helicopter. Like the rotor is like just like nonstop, right? If you keep doing that and then you're really close to the ground, you create a lot of dust and you might not even see where you're going. So sometimes it's just like park the helicopter, turn it off, have the rotor like stop and have the dust settle. And then once the sky is clear again, maybe turn it on and then go back at full speed.
See, I feel like I build the most momentum when I'm just like constantly doing it. And there's this guy, Gary Vaynerchuk. You ever heard of that guy? He's a little bit out there. And he's like, the first time I heard his stuff, I fell into that category. He talks about, he's like, some people don't like me when they first hear me. And that was me. I was like, this guy's a little bit intense for me, but I totally agree.
He's a straight shooter. I love that about him.
He's totally grown on me over the years. I'm actually going through his book, Crushing It, right now in Audible format. And I'm like, this is a badass book.
Is he reading it himself?
He narrates it himself.
Oh, that's awesome. I'll have to listen to that. Yeah, that's cool.
It's little Gary Vaynerchuk in the ear for like 5 minutes, 20 minutes a day, whatever. But because
it's an old book, right? It's like what, 2-3 years?
It's a couple of years now. Yeah. And there's still principles that apply if you're looking to build a business, take your business to the next level. It's kind of, that's what I like about, there's a lot of stuff I think that are just timeless principles that, ancient proverbs that we just have new versions of them. They're the same thing. They just sound different. So I think there's some executional things in there that aren't applicable today because the social media landscape changes so fast, but there's fundamentals in there that if you take them and run with them, you're like, okay, I can do that. But he talks about work-life balance, and that's something that I tell people all the time. Balance is a myth. If you sit down with a piece of paper and you draw a circle, right? Your circle's 100%. Now take anything, put it on that circle. So let's say 100% is your life. The minute you carve out even the tiniest slice, you have less than 100%. So there's no way you can give everything 100%. You can give something 100% for a certain period of time, but then as soon as you shift that attention, it's not 100%. So I personally find when I'm just like doing, obviously taking, what you're talking about rest periods, for me, that's 5 minutes to reflect on what's about to happen over the next 2 hours, or that's at the end of the day for the next day. That could technically be rest, but it's still in preparation of what's to come. And that really energizes me and gets me focused.
Yeah, but when you go on vacation, I mean, you go like, I know you're a big snowboarder, you like mountain biking and stuff like that. But wouldn't that not be rest? I mean, I'm not saying rest needs to be something you lay on the couch and literally just don't do nothing, right?
Yeah.
It's just like you need to distance yourself from the project, from the task, from the business, from whatever. I mean, like even Tom Brady has an off season, right? There's kind of like recover, and we need that mentally.
I think like when you talk about snowboarding though, for me it's also like that's a form of fitness. So I'm like, I like it because I'm staying in, like, it's active, it's hard, it's challenging. So I think if we were to call that rest, like my rest is usually still challenging for the most part. You know, I like reading a book. That's a form of rest, but I'm still thinking. And is it Socrates or some old ancient thinkers that talk about your rest should never dull your senses? Like your rest shouldn't be binge drinking or overeating to where you can't move or do anything. So I guess if we were to define rest like that, like for me, the most rest, the best things that I get are still keeping me sharp.
Yes, and I think that's the secret, right? Like of rest is there's active resting, and you know, like how many like big CEOs have like a hobby where they do something complete like off topic. Like I met this guy, he has a big real estate company actually. And what he does, he has this little VW van that he just like builds out, and it's his baby, right? And he just like loves working on the car, and that's like what he does on his weekend. And for me, rest is Saturdays. You know, like Saturdays is my day off where I really like completely shut off of work, and I do other things. You know, like play soccer, which is pretty active. So it's like 2 hours of soccer every Saturday. I read a book. I sometimes even write on the book. You know, it's like I do fun things, but like I completely detach from the main business, from the main part, right? And other things. So it's like you have to detach from your profession a little bit, and especially as an entrepreneur, it's not just a job, man. It's a lifestyle, and you have to kind of find that balance to really make it work, to stay healthy, and kind of also comes back to that, you know, like the brain is a little bit like muscles. Like it really fires, you know, when it's not engaged, you know, like when do people have their best ideas? When they're in the shower, when they're on a run, you know, when they're sleeping. Every entrepreneur has this big notepad right next to the pillow.
I've got a notepad in my shower that's stuck to the wall, and it's waterproof paper and a waterproof pencil. Yeah. You know, it's funny, when I first put it in there too, I had this little thought, and I'm like, man, if this is one of those things where as soon as I put this in there, now my brain's like, don't come up with thoughts, because it like has that little fear, nervousness, and those free flowing thoughts are going to come because there's a commitment to putting thoughts on this. But, you know, I had to even work through that. It's like the smallest little thing, but you have to recognize that so that you don't block that flow. And that thing's been super fun, like tearing through that. How long have you, okay, so let's talk about Shore Buddies a little bit, man. How long you been doing that? What is it? What got you into it? Let's hear all the good stuff.
Yeah, let's talk about Shore Buddies. So Shore Buddies is the world's first stuffed animal 100% made from recycled plastic bottles, and started it here in San Diego in 2014, and was kind of interesting, right? Like I really got into that. Like I don't have a background in toys or sustainability or ocean protection in that case. I have a master's in IT and business, and that's kind of like what I've been doing back then in Germany. And when I first moved to California, for me, that was always the forefront of the green revolution, right? Everyone is eco-friendly, everyone recycles, everyone hugs a tree in the morning, you know, California. And what really shocked me the most was kind of like the restaurant industry and how casual like the plastic was handled there. And everyone still was like, oh yeah, we need to protect the environment and the ocean and this and that. And this plastic thing was like, when I came to California, I learned beach cleanups are a thing, right? So, but then we're at those restaurants, and they put a plastic cup of a huge plastic straw in front of you, like giving you your water when you sit down. And for me, it was like, what is this? Like, so this is a good and fancy and nice restaurant, and the ocean is right there, and you're putting this plastic right in front of me. They're like, is this McDonald's? Like in Europe, that would be kind of offensive if someone gives you plastic in a nice restaurant. And for me, it was like, where does this come from, right? Like, why do people act like this? And at the same time, like it's saying, well, we need to clean up the ocean. Well, the problem is right in front of them, right? So there must be like a huge misconception in the education about like this plastic and recycling and all of that. And so I was always looking for, where's this green California everyone is talking about, right? Can I just be Tesla? And one day I read this article about that outdoor brand from Ventura, Patagonia. So they've been making jackets and t-shirts all from recycled soda pop bottles since the 90s. And for me, it was like, holy cow, man, you can do that? I had no idea this is possible. You can make a fabric and like then make t-shirts and stuff. So that was super cool. And back then there was like, entrepreneurial spirit kicks in, and I was reading the article on my laptop on my couch and just looking for pen and paper because I wasn't in the shower, didn't have a pen and block with me there, right? So but anyway, I'm getting off of the couch, and literally the first thing I saw was a stuffed animal, a stuffed seagull. Actually, I once bought in college. Like went to college in Hamburg, and like I kind of loved seagulls. They were always the sound of the ocean for me. And for me, just seeing that stuffed animal was like, if you can make a t-shirt out of recycled plastic, you certainly can make a stuffed animal. It's the same fabric, right? And then, really looking into that in the beginning, it was now 6 years ago, almost 7 years ago. Was like, so Malte, what do you guys do? Stuffed animals, plastic bottles, saving the ocean. Oh, good for you, buddy. Good luck. And now we're a couple of years later, and now it's like the most trending toy in the industry, right? Like we're running for a Toy of the Year award, which will be the ceremony is this Friday. So fingers crossed. Hopefully it will win. But it came a long way, and it's literally like the standard. Like I kind of compare it to the electric car movement with Tesla, right? It has to be the small guy. It has to be the innovative entrepreneur who is challenging the big companies to do it, right? Like a General Motors, a Ford, a Mercedes, a Chrysler. All of them had way more resources, could have easily done the electric car, but it was this crazy guy from the Bay Area who had like the drive. And I think there's no discussion now that there's going to be any way back from an electric car. That literally is the future. And now we're seeing that in the stuffed animal, in the plush world too. And in general, the toy industry is heavily moving towards sustainability.
Dude, it's and your toys in general. So the first time that I felt one, and I think you did something like, you were like, hey, what do you think this is made out of or whatever? And I was like, I don't know, this is really soft. And I've had them in my car, kind of around the house. And I've got a blue whale. We can talk about that in a minute over there. And I loved handing it to someone, or when they would pick it up and go, oh, this is cool. I'd say, what do you think that is made out of? And they would just be lost, or like, I don't know, cotton, or, some type of animal or whatever it is. And they'd just be stumped because they knew it was kind of a trick question. And I'm like, it's made out of plastic, like recycled ocean plastic. And it is so freaking soft. It's incredible. So how do you actually, I don't know if you're allowed to like tell trade secrets or something, but how do you get plastic out of the ocean? How does it become what that adorable thing is over there?
So we are not getting it out of the ocean. So we are actually working on that. That's going to come soon. So we were the first stuffed animal made from recycled plastic. Now we're on track to be from ocean plastic. So that's in the progress. It's probably going to maybe third quarter this year. We're going to have something to talk about that. But yeah, it's a recycling. So for me, it was like showing, right? Like I feel like there was this gap missing, right? Like everyone is like, oh, cool, recycling. That sounds like a good idea. Oh, let's do it. But what actually happens, right? Like what actually happens in the cycle? Where's the product that is like coming out of the recycle bin, out of the trash can, if you will, right? Like what is created there? And yeah, like just showing it is possible. You can do that. And I'm not saying recycling is the way like out of this plastic pandemic literally we have, but it needs to be resolved in one way or the other. If we think about it, like every piece of plastic we ever manufactured as a human species is still out there somewhere, and we need to find solutions for that. And I think doing it to cute stuffed animals and using the stuffed animals to teach the kids that single-use plastic is probably not the best idea. I think that's something how we can improve the world.
I think that's pretty cool. And this next thing might just get me in trouble with you. It might get me in trouble with a lot of people. But I said this the other day, and I actually was getting to get my haircut today, and I said it in the salon, which are finally back open in California. Congratulations, everybody has quarantine hair. We can get that fixed finally. And when I was leaving, one of the ladies in the salon, she goes, "It was really interesting listening to you talk about climate change." Because I heard this lady talking about climate change on Instagram. And it just hit me. Like, things have accumulated over in terms of information over a period of time. And I'm like, we're not talking about climate change. We're talking about climate control. Because let's take Mars as an example. Mars is a planet. The temperature, the weather, it does whatever it wants. I don't know what the climate is like on Mars, but the planet's fine, right? So when we talk about like climate change and protecting the planet here, I think what we're actually talking about is how do we keep humans alive and animals for the long term? Because the weather's going to change. The weather's changed in the past. There's all this evidence and science that shows it was way hotter. There's really interesting, research that shows increasing CO2 emissions actually helps plants. I mean, that's why plants thrive in here. They get CO2, they can grow. There is a point of impact where it seems like it might be detrimental, but the planet, if humans died off, like the planet would keep going. It's just fine. It's a planet. The sun's going to run out of fumes at some point. So I've been thinking about this, and it has changed how I think about, and I'm not saying let's go litter the planet and throw a bunch of plastic out there. It's absolutely not what I'm saying. But how we word things and how we talk about them really matters. So I don't know. It's just been kind of fascinating to me lately to think of, we're really just looking at the survival of the human species. Any obviously adorable dolphins and adorable animals out there, but the planet itself, it's not like we're going to blow the thing up.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what we humans do, though. Not that we nuke the entire thing and it just disappears from the universe. I mean, that's probably in the time and the age of the universe. I mean, this is happening to planets too, right? It's we are in history of times, we're like a millisecond blink, even, right? Like the planet is pretty old. We live on human species. We've been around for 5,000 years top, 10,000 years, right? So it's that, and we're affecting definitely with pollution, the planet and the climate and the air quality and everything. Like, we do that, and any change to the climate that is happening to this planet will be really hard to maintain the lifestyle we developed as human species. If you think about most major cities, they are very close to the coast. They are very close to the water. And those kind of things that are really impacted, right? Like if you have New York City and the Bay Area, if you have seawater level rise there, they are in big trouble, right? Like those two cities that are major cities, and that goes all around the world. It's like London is pretty much, if the river there goes up, the Thames goes up, that city like Amsterdam, they are building all those floodgates. The entire country of the Netherlands is under sea level. So yeah, that's where everyone is, with the climate change, that we need to stop. That is to maintain the cities, is to maintain the lifestyle we build. And for me, that's why I really do think that for me personally, that I like to focus on ocean or on plastic pollution, because with the climate change, yes, it does affect animals too. But like nature in itself is able to adapt to many things, right? Like we're literally trying to keep our lifestyle that we have available. And with plastic pollution, it's really, we don't give nature a chance, right? We're like polluting nature. This ends up in places animals choke to death, especially sea animals. And that's just like something that I don't want to be part of. And I made it a mission myself to, you know, really commit everything that I can do personally to stop that, slow it down, reverse it. We'll see how far we can get.
I think that's freaking cool too. I think we have a, you know, it's not like the world's going to be fine. You know, I'm not saying like, you know, go shit in your neighbor's lawn. It'll be okay. Nature will take care of it. I think we do have a responsibility. And that's what I hear from you is like my role as a human on this planet. Like I recognize that we have these problems. I'm taking responsibility for it. I think it's freaking awesome what you're doing.
Thanks.
I know that you go out and educate kids a lot too. And I have a big, like, I think about this all the time. Like, what can I do to be a better person so that my nieces, my nephews, like kids that I come into contact, like, so, I mean, they matter so much, the impact we have on them. What are you doing out there with the kids and the schools and how's that going?
Yeah, so I mean, this is literally right. The Shore Buddies is the vehicle, right, to reach the kids. It's really that, and I always say we're not really doing it for the kids. We're doing it with the kids, and the kids they already know that, right? It's the kids they feel it. They see something is not right, and some of them take action and really want to change, right? They really demand change. I mean, we're seeing like those Friday for Futures and all those movements, Greta Thunberg, like all of that. Those are kids, right? Those are now the new voices for the planet, if you will. And with Show Buddies, it's just like we want to support that, right? We want to get those kids a platform, help them to reach more and make the change in the world. And that kind of like dials into like being the better person. It's be the change you want to see. It sounds cliche, but it really is like that. Like every time I'm on the beach, fortunately, it's a lot of times here in San Diego.
Yes.
It's like pick up some trash, right, and then like take it with me off the beach, and you see it affects people, right? It's just by leading that example, you see people like, why are you doing that? And seeing that, and like sometimes they ask questions, sometimes they just look at you, but you're touching lives by your actions. And I think that's really a success. It's like how many lives you touch, right? This is really like how success is. And I think that's a good way to lead. Just Michael Jackson said it too, right? Like, want to start change the world, start with the man in the mirror.
That guy said a lot of things, but that's pretty cool. The man in the mirror. There's a project that I'm working on, and it's not like it's sad because it's not original in that sense. Like, I mean, it's really just, I think from learning from other people, reading things. I mean, like Tony Robbins has his, different areas of life, and the Dave Duran guy I mentioned, he's got what he calls like the 6 spinning plates. He wrote a book called Perpetual Motivation about it. And just over time, as I've looked at some of the things we've talked about, like consistency, impact, like contribution. So I've been working, I don't even know if you can see it up there, but if you see all the writing on the mirror up there, yeah. So I know it's shaped like a pyramid. It's not an Illuminati pyramid. I just happen to think that was the best shape to put out what I'm working on. And there's a program at the end of 2019 that I started developing called Leveling Up Leaders, and put the project on hold a little bit during 2020. A lot of other activities like increased for me in my world, and so I didn't give it the like attention that it deserves. I've been working on it again, kind of at night and weekends, and like 5 o'clock in the morning, kind of the off hours, and it's essentially these different areas of life, and I have sort of, you can call them new age terms for them, but it's the building blocks for just being a great human, like being a happy person, leaving a legacy.
You found the secret to happiness?
Yeah, wouldn't that be cool, man? I don't know. I get people all the time that are like, why are you so positive all the time? And I'm like, well, I like to be realistic, but it just feels better to like be optimistic about things. Why wouldn't you? But I don't know. That's you don't have to be positive to be a good person. So.
And I think that's really, really important for optimists. So many people get that wrong, what an optimist is, right? It's like, oh yeah, you're so optimistic and this and that. While it's still acknowledging that the moment right now is not the perfect moment. An optimist is totally aware of that. An optimist is not delusional. Just being an optimist is always knowing there's a better future to come.
Yeah. If you're going to go shoot some baskets at the basketball court, what's going to happen if every single shot you go, this one's probably not going to go. This one's probably not going to go either. I don't think the next one's going to make it. How many of those shots are you going to make? Probably 0. You might get lucky, but I'd rather step up to everything in life and go, I'm going to do my best to make this shot. I know that I'm going to miss X percentage of time, but I'm going to keep taking those shots. And to me, that's like more of the actual optimistic positivity thing. Wayne
Gretzky, as I said earlier, like I grew up playing hockey, right? So he was a big idol. Like was still active when I played. And one of his big favorites, famous sayings is, right, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Dude, yeah. Take shots all day. I know that I stopped taking shots on the dating apps like we were talking about earlier because no more of those. Got to watch out for those shots.
Yeah. You have to be careful what you catch with those shots, man.
oh, you might end up with the penicillin shots. That's a terrible joke. But dating is a whole nother topic that's really interesting, especially with like quarantine times and how old we are and stuff like that. But for life, yes. What I was talking about with that program though, you talked about impact, like influence, things like that. It's this concept that again I've borrowed from other people and kind of put my own twist on. I mean, there's books about it. You can find psychology literature, but it's that when you are living life a certain way and you've tied these things together and the things that you do on a daily recurring basis touch all of these areas, you just like you feel better. You have more influence and control every day. So the bottom concept that I have is tribe, essentially just the people around you. Family, friends, sometimes friends are family. I've had families adopt me at later stages in life. That's family to me. Some people believe spiritual family from another planet, that type of stuff. There's essentially that. Then the next kind of rung that I have is body, mind, and spirit. Some people go, hey, I'm an atheist. Like, what do you mean spirit? Cool. Just call it like the spirit of being a person, that, spirit of joy. You don't have to call it a soul or a transcendental being or something like that, but you have to take care of your body. You don't have to be a fitness freak. You got to keep that thing in check. Your mind is it's literally like a garden. It's also, I think you have to treat your mind like your body. Like you have to work it out. You have to exercise thoughts. You have to talk to people. You have to write things down. Like you can't just let all these things build up in there, roll around, get mumbled and crumbled. Like you have to work them out in some way, shape, or form. Go see a therapist. Talk to your friends. Make sure your friends are people that you can talk to actually work these thoughts out. They're not just going to bounce them back in and make them work, right? And then in spirit, some people it's meditation, whatever. That might just be hanging out with your kids, like that kind of stuff. But then there's like work or purpose. We hear all this like buzzwords or follow your passion, follow your purpose. It's basically that whatever thing that you set out to do on a daily basis has to be generative. It has to help other people. And then that's tied to impact or contribution. So when you can do work, and I'd say most work, most activity, most productivity has some sort of impact on the world. But I think the more you can tie your work to impact, like you with Shore Buddies, influencing these kids, the last part of this whole equation is money or currency. And what's another word for currency? I think of current, I think of energy. So all of these things stacked up when you do them right, you don't have to focus on money because money becomes the outcome of doing all these things in the right way. So there you go. There's my long.
Yeah, I think that's a great analogy there. It's and I thought about that with currency before too. it's flow was the translation for me, right? Like ocean currents, and like it all goes in a certain direction, right? And like all follows something. And currency, what does it follow? Like it flows, the money flows. And that's where, like, looking at successful people, it's the success, and that's a lot of times measured in money, is really based on, the impact these people have, and by the lives they touch. And that's, I think, that's from the really big ones in the business, right? The really ones who move the movers and shakers. They all were not in the game for the money to begin with. That kind of like came out as a result.
Yeah. Anybody I've done business with for any extended period of time, that I think has been in it just for the money, I've like stopped doing it. It came to a certain point where like wasn't worth it to work that person. You can kind of recognize that, and it wasn't worth the energy to work with somebody that maybe on the outside seemed like it wanted to help people. Maybe, I like to believe that all people are intrinsically good. You could argue that all day. Not everybody's good, but it helps me live life when I go, this person's not trying to harm somebody. Like they're just, they're trying to, there's a fear under there. They're trying to protect something. They're trying to do something they think is right. But yeah, I mean, you said earlier, like entrepreneurship is a lifestyle. That's because of social media. It's a super popular quote unquote lifestyle.
Well, yeah, but I'm not really saying like we are rock stars or anything like that. I mean, yeah, sure, some like live it up and like, flash the Ferraris and the Rolexes, but the lifestyle is more, you just don't clock out. Like there's no like, okay, that's it, 5 o'clock, I'll see you tomorrow. Like, and I'm not saying, they are not people that are working like hard and they, doing like overtime and like keep, having the job on their mind. But as an entrepreneur creating things, it's really different, right? Like we talked about that earlier, the sacrifices, right? There's no like family vacation, maybe, if there is like a big investor meeting, if there, is that product presentation and all of that. It really, that always goes and comes first, right? There's never too late, there's never too early. And there's the discipline that you have to do those certain things, right? That you not going out with the boys on a Saturday night and get drunk at the bars and having a lot of fun, or conversation with a friend of mine the other day where she was telling me that I kind of want to have like a flexible schedule, so like when something comes up, I don't like to make appointments so far in advance. Like if someone wants to go wakeboarding, was like, I was a lot of Saturdays like I just did not go wakeboarding, like I would have loved to, but there are other things. And again, it's like this delayed clarification, I guess.
I often use the example, there was a birthday party that I missed once for a family member, and they were pretty upset. They couldn't quite understand it. I said, I love you to death. I just I have some things I have to do. Like I'm at this point where I'm building something, I'm growing. There's nobody else that can do this thing that I need to do. It's at the same time, I wish you'd give me earlier notice. I mean, that's part of it. Give me more than 3 days notice. Like, I mean, I should have known the birthday was coming up. I could put it on the calendar, but I didn't know there's gonna be a party. And I always like to look at myself first. But one is that you, as an entrepreneur, you really have to look at the calendar ahead quite a bit to make sure you have the right things plugged in.
Yeah, but my life is dictated by my calendar, but like in a good way and in a bad way. Like it's like everything goes on there. And I remember like that started when I first started really putting the calendar, everything on it. Like put like calls and stuff with my parents and my brother. Like my brother asked me once, "Well, you're putting me on your calendar? Seriously?" Like, yeah, I have to.
Yeah, it's funny those conversations, but you need structure. Structure beats chaos. Chaos is how you fail at business, so you don't want that. But there's this family member later on, which was the cool part, was all that work that I put in then made it so that I was able to do so much more for future birthdays, like big stuff, because I had made those short-term sacrifices for the long-term success. Now, you could argue people are like, YOLO, live in the moment. You never know how long you're going to live. Yeah, but for the most part, like, the short-term sacrifices are worth it. I don't know if I'm going to live to be 100, but I'm going to plan for it just in case.
Yeah, but I think that's it's a tough balance, and I personally struggle with at least 5 times before 8 o'clock. It's really when do you do that? When do you have those successes that you celebrate? Like, I think it's really important to do that and do the fun things in life, right? Like, yeah, it's not that you need to like party your ass off every Thursday to Sunday night. Like, I think they're important stuff that you have to do. But I think it's life is also meant to be fun, and doing those kind of things, I think it's really important.
You may have experienced this. I know I still experience it after years, it's fun for me. Like, I turn into a fun conversation when people are like, "Happy Friday, it's the weekend," and I just like to ask them, like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And they go, and they're just very confused sometimes. Like, if they've never like had their own business or worked in that kind of a thinking environment around business owners or had a passion project, they're literally just a lot of times like can't wait for the weekend.
Yeah,
so when you say,
you I'm sure like people have that reaction when you say that. It's kind of like the deer in the headlights. Like, oh wait, what?
Yeah, nobody's ever asked me that. Well, like, what does the weekend mean to you? Oh, it's a celebration. Celebration of what? That you hate the other 5 days of the week? Like, that sucks.
Yeah,
that's awful. Like, but yeah. So sacrifices. You've had Shore Buddies for 7 years.
Yeah.
You've been in the U.S. for how long?
10 years.
10 years. What are some of the biggest sacrifices that you've made?
Biggest sacrifices. Definitely a lot of vacations that I did not have. A lot of like short trips or going one thing comes to mind is like snowboarding and skiing. I don't think I've been like in the last 8 years.
It's painful to hear.
Yeah, I know those kind of things. But yeah, like, it's then not seeing family, not seeing parents and my brother's family. They're in Germany, so I try to go over there as much as I can, combine it with like business trips, but obviously you cannot be at every single birthday. And so yeah, that's definitely there. And then other things, it's there are certain times, right? Like when you start out a business where like cash flow becomes an issue, and then it's like, okay, like, I guess we are not eating that fancy tonight, and it's gonna be a quesadilla and beans.
Actually, it's making me hungry.
That sounds good.
Nothing like a good quesadilla. Well, this is pretty cool, man. I know it's getting late. It's Thursday night? What day is it? Is it Wednesday?
I think it's a Wednesday.
It's
night.
Wednesday. Wow, yeah, they're all just one giant day. I was just talking about what's the weekend. So is there anything in particular? I mean, I just appreciate you coming by and participating in this, getting to talk about Shore Buddies. I mean, I still have a couple more questions for you actually regarding your business and those kind of things. But is there anything like you wanted to just plug or talk about in general?
Yeah, I think it's just like I really enjoyed the conversation. I think it was awesome, and it's great, and I love to talk about those things, and like getting ideas out there, and like vibing with people, like really is like we're back to everything. It's kind of energy, like the energy you have in a room comes like from the people a lot of times, or if we want to go a little deeper, like it comes from the ether. Yeah, I know. We're just like absorbing it and like spreading it and turning it around. But no, I'm just really, really happy and grateful. Like, it's, as I said, it's like a life decision, or like, not necessarily know if it's a life decision, but I feel for like a lot of entrepreneurs, it's kind of like a mindset, and once you're there, it's really hard to go back to like a regular job, to 9 to 5 or like, you know, any type of work. It's really, there's a lot of like creatives out there of us entrepreneurs, and we want to build something, you know, we want to do something, and a lot of us don't really like to be told what to do.
Yeah, I think that's why a lot of people get into business. There's some sense of like a little bit of ego, like I can do that better, or I want to do this different. And I regularly think about something I read in a book 5 or 6 years ago. And the book wasn't even about this. It was like one page or like one paragraph in this book, but that's just how my brain works. I'm like, here's this book about all this great stuff. And then it's like one thing. I'm like, that's what I like out of the whole book. And it talked about anytime you're going to make a decision to commit to something, how you can actually measure. So talking about the secret of happiness, hey, maybe I do have a little bit of the secret of happiness. It says that you can measure whether it's a job or a relationship. I mostly think about this in the business world with jobs or businesses or anything, that if you ask yourself these questions and you rate yourself on a scale of 0 to 10 for each of these categories, that you'll be able to predict with a certain level of certainty how happy you'll actually be at this venture. And so it's 3 things. It's, again, these are all on a scale of 0 to 10, but it's, the first one is autonomy, like a level of freedom. I break it down a little more than the book does, because the book keeps it simple around this. But when I think of that, and I think of entrepreneurship and how people do things, if you're a 10, you're like a bald eagle, right? So you just want to fly above everybody else, do everything on your own. I think that's a solopreneur. And I think that's a much harder journey where a lot of people fail and struggle, because it's much better to have a team around you. Even if the team isn't able to do things exactly like you do them, you have to get over some of that, back to our progress over perfection earlier. So if you're an entrepreneur, you probably want like a 7 or an 8, somewhere around there, to have systems and teamwork. Some people you have to be super self-aware though. You might be a 0 or a 1, like a lemming. Like, all right, everybody's going in that direction. Like, put me in line. Let me walk off the cliff. Some people are super happy with that. I think that's cool. Like, if they're happy with that, that's okay. It's not me. You know, it's obviously not you, but you have to know where you're at on that scale of 0 to 10. So that's the first one, a certain level of freedom, autonomy. The second thing is complexity. Does this sound familiar? Nodding your head, like,
yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm so with you on that solopreneur thing. That's one thing I learned with Shore Buddies, and then there's a couple of other projects that, like, you know, happened later on, and then happening right now, working on a couple of interesting things like other businesses. And for me, if I would do anything over again, I would not start by myself. But in reality, I did not even have another choice, right? It was like, I'm a first generation immigrant. I know I don't look like one. I'm white, I'm male. I look like I'm like born and raised here in Southern California, but de facto I'm like a first generation immigrant. And paid for my own immigration. Was not cheap. Like, for the green card came because of the business. You know, kind of like that really all led to it. And the business, not Shore Buddies, but before that, I had a IT consulting company, and kind of like, I knew deep inside me, I always kind of wanted to do something myself. But, you know, it didn't really was ready for that. Like, when I left my corporate job back in Germany, I thought, like, I come here and just, you know, go straight back to project management and all those kind of things for a company. But, like the job market in San Diego was just, I guess at that time I had like an ego. It's like, I'm not gonna start working for that, right? Like, you come from a 6-digit salary, and all of a sudden they tell you, like, yeah, you're entry level, like a college graduate. And I was like, okay, well, I'll just start my own company, right? And started doing that, and like, that was kind of like, I guess, the start down the rabbit hole. And from that, but team is really, really important. And I'm with you with that. Like, it's like being the eagle, just flying above, like looking at everything and always be ready to attack. That's not a healthy way to run a business. And I say that with proud now. And now we build a team, right? Like, I didn't have the co-founders or something like that in the beginning, but now we build a team like in a worldwide team. And I always say jokingly, but I say it with full proud, is I only know half the shit that is going on in this company.
And that's old school Henry Ford stuff when they put him on stand and they're like, you don't know how to do this, you don't know how to do that. And he goes, he's like, yeah, I have a lot of people I can pick up the phone, call them, and they know how to do it. And that makes me super smart because I can use my energy for other things, basically. So it's cool on the first one. So then let's hit the other two. So the second one is complexity. And when I think of this, I think, you brought up Elon Musk. I'm not an engineer. I have no desire to be an engineer. I think it's cool that we can colonize Mars. I'm not going to participate in that because it's not my skill set or my desire. So if you put me in the SpaceX program and told me to figure some stuff out, it's going to be so complex and just not in my wheelhouse at this point in life. I'm going to get frustrated. I might even give up, right? So if something is a 10, it's just too hard. There's too much complexity. We're not built for it. And we'll get frustrated and stop. So it can't be a 10, but it also can't be a 0, because if it's a 0 or too low on this scale, we get bored. And so if you wake up every day and you're like, I can't wait to go to my boring job. Now I had a really cool job in like my mid 20s, and it put me through college. I worked in this wealth management firm with celebrity athletes. It was great. But one of the reasons I did so well there, like I was like a file boy when I first started, because it's kind of a cool story. The CEO's mom basically told him he had to hire me. It was 2008 and there were no jobs, and I was leaving my job because they wouldn't give me time for college. And she tells him like, you have to hire this guy. So I show up and he's like, my mom said I have to hire you. What can you do? Right. And and I was like, whatever you want me to do, I'll figure it out. And he looked at me like I was crazy. So they put me in the file room, and I was so bored. This goes back to having time for creativity too, but I was so bored that this thing that took them like 3, 4, 5 days, sometimes like multiple people, I was like, what do they say? If you want something done, like give it to a lazy person. I was like, this is the most arduous, insane task. So I figured it out, like how to do it in a half a day. And then I just had all this free time, and I was like, cool, I'm bored again. Right. But that's kind of what helped me work through the company really fast. Like got my own office, like super fast, that kind of stuff. They're like, wow, this has been taking us this long for years, and you just like basically saved us a salary. Like this other person retired because they didn't have work to do anymore. But over time, if something like that is super boring, like I found myself sitting there in the office going, like, these tasks aren't stretching me. Like I don't have this like growth thing that's happening here. Like I can see what the next 10 years hold for me, or 15 years. So I got so bored that I decided to move to Brazil. But so there's two ends of that side, right? If it's too hard, we give up. If it's too easy, we get bored. We're not passionate. We can be sad, all these other things. You have to have the right level of complexity.
Yeah. And I think that's what really like is huge similarity with that is with goal setting, right? So like what I really discovered with goal setting is like the secret to is they have to challenge you a lot and scare you a little. And that's really, I feel like the key with complexity, right? Like you always get to a point. If someone presents you an opportunity, say yes and figure out later. I think Richard Branson said that, but he's a crazy bastard. So, but it kind of goes there. But I also learned over years that just because the opportunity presents in front of you, like you don't always have to take it. There's like a really important to like being able to say no to certain things. And a lot of us creatives, kind of like, I want to say get used, but lack of a better word, it's like getting used, right? Kind of like the idea, like if you don't follow your own dreams, someone else hires you to build out theirs. And that's something like you're really trying to avoid. Yeah.
You don't want to say no too much, or you don't want to say yes too much. You have to learn to say no to some things, but you also, again, there's so much minutiae to these things we're talking about, right? Because I know I've said no to things that could have worked out really well. A buddy of mine that I work with now, his name is Brian Gilchrist, super cool guy out in Texas. We first met, and I was like 20 years old, and I was a sales manager at this 24-hour fitness in Reno. He's like a personal trainer, dude from Boston. He's like, hustler kind of mentality guy. He comes over, and sits down on my desk and he's like, I need, $3,500 from you. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, we both got to come up with $3,500. Like, let's do this. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he goes, there's a business that we can buy into. He's like, we're going to be one of the first people. All we got to do is buy this thing and we get the rights to like all of this part of Nevada and some part of like the California border, like Tahoe area. He's like, it's going to be huge. And I was like, you sound like you're full of baloney. I don't know you that well. Hustler guy from Boston. Like, nah, you're crazy. I was this big skeptic, right? Mm-hmm. The story was he was like, we're going to take these boxes and we're going to put them in front of grocery stores and people are going to put their debit card and credit card in them and they're going to get movies out of them.
Oh, what was it? Was like Red? No,
it was
Redbox.
Redbox. Yeah. I'm being super skeptical because, and this is another reason I don't pay. I mean, this is like I was 20, so I had to learn not to pay attention to the media. Like my grandparents love the news, so I'm like, oh, it's the news. I didn't realize how negative and how much garbage was in it. But the hot topic around then was how there was a lot of fraud happening at gas stations and people putting their debit cards in. So people weren't really trusting these new concepts. I mean, this is 2005. This is 2005. Different world back then. So there was all this all this skepticism and like, no way, man, this is not happening. Well, I mean, if we had done that, you and I wouldn't be talking right now, most likely, because I might be living a different lifestyle by that would have changed my 20s for sure. But I learned that lesson of like, be a healthy skeptic. Don't say no to everything. So the next time that guy actually brought me an opportunity, it changed my life and it was huge and it's pretty cool and we're still really good friends. But so you have to say yes sometimes, but you have to learn to say no. So how to assess when to do that, I think, is a really valuable skill.
It's a really valuable skill. I 100% agree. But sometimes it's the right opportunity just comes at the wrong time. That also happens. We all just have this 24-hour a day, right? That's kind of like our limit. I mean, if we skip lunch, we have an extra hour, but that's just like all what we have to deal with. And it just depends on what you want to like do in those 24 hours. And I'm always puzzled when I hear, oh yeah, I was so bored, I just watched TV or just watched a movie. Like, there's nothing wrong with like watching things and doing, those kind of things. But for me, the shocking is like, I'm bored. Like, I don't remember the last time I was bored. I mean, there's so many things out there to do and stuff. And yeah, it's just like something that never happens to me.
I love to say that boredom is a disease. When one of my, again, I love my nieces and nephews, so I talk about them a lot. But when I hear them say they're bored, for one, I think you do have to have quote unquote boredom, but it shouldn't be a perpetual thing. If you're a kid, you can get creativity, like we were talking about earlier. Great ideas come out of kind of this downtime. If you're perpetually bored as an adult, if you're happy, that's cool. If you're happy being bored, okay. If you're saying I'm bored, quote, / I'm unhappy, that's a different conversation. And so like I kind of schedule time to be bored. I schedule Sunday morning going to Coronado Beach at 6 a.m. when nobody else is there. I'm sitting there, my phone is turned off or somewhere. Like I'm quote unquote bored. I'm really just creating downtime, rest time, like we were talking about earlier. But I'm in nature. I'm doing something exciting. It's like a high energy activity. So yeah, just boredom is a disease. Like if you're doing it on accident all the time, it's a energy suck.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't say like disease is such a strong word.
That's why I like it. That's why I say it. I'm like, it's a disease. Quit being bored.
It's good. I mean, like there's solutions to it, and like that's kind of like boredom might be like a mild form of a depression.
It's a curable disease.
But yeah, it's 100% a curable disease. It's now like just do something, like there's so many things to do.
So last thing, we'll cover that last thing. So we got 3 things that make us happy, right? So we have the right level of autonomy, the right level of complexity. So it has to be the right challenge for us, mentally, physically, whatever. And the third thing is a correlation, or we'll call it a relationship between effort and reward. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, get started because they don't have the right level of autonomy. They are doing something that's either too easy or just usually too easy, in my opinion, or in my experience. And they're also going like, even if I put all my effort into this, the reward isn't what I'm looking for. And so that correlation, you also really need to be like, you have to have perspective on what that actually means. Because I've also heard people say things like, I'm not getting what I'm worth. And if you really dig into that and you look at how much value you bring, if you're making an hourly wage, for example, like what is the actual value of that hour? Maybe you're worth more, but where you're spending your time, there's not a value in that particular activity to create the outcome that you're looking for. So you have to find that equal match.
Yeah, and I think like a reward is something that's really hard, and I feel like that's really hard, especially when you're just first starting out or when you're younger. And just today we had a work a lot with like college students. I think it's really important, especially with the pandemic now. Like, I feel bad actually for a lot of college kids that that's the best time in college. You know, like meeting like-minded people, like getting out from the house, from the parents, moving out, being in college, being with a bunch of, you know, people in the same situation in life. And most friends you make in your life is at college, you know, like that's where everyone is kind of like in the same situation. Like, oh, hey, I'm here, I'm still trying to figure that out, right? So like you really with people in the same situation in life. And also there are parties all the time somewhere, and that's kind of like taking away now from those students. And I was very fortunate when I was in college. I kind of had like this dual education where it was like for 4 years that I was 8 weeks in college and then 8 weeks with a company, kind of like in a trainee position. And I really believe that kind of like spiraled my career. Like because I already had that work experience, and that's what I'm trying to tell a lot of the college students these days is that you have to get that work experience and also realize that the world has shifted, right? It's like this idea of working 40, 50, 60 hours a week, whatever you want to call it. I think that's a thing of the past. It's time. It's like, right, you're like kind of getting paid for your value, not for like the time you spend there. And I see it a lot of in corporate, but now there's more movement towards like home office, remote working from here and there. And I think there should be like results driven and like hard, you know, deadlines and everything still needs to be measurable. But I personally, for our employees, for our interns, for our contractors, I don't give a damn like how long they need it for that, as long as the deadline is met. If you are able to pull up this 120-hour project in like 4 hours, good for you. Sit on the beach the rest of the time, go surfing, go biking, start your own business, write a book. I don't give a damn. But if you take 160 hours, you should check yourself.
This is legitimately one of my favorite topics in terms of time compression. There's actually a business term for it, and it could use a better name because it's called Parkinson's law. And I mean, that has some other, you know, that's associated with Parkinson's disease, which is not super exciting at all. But it's called Parkinson's law. And it's essentially, you know, if I'm at my desk and I'm an employee and you're my boss and you come by and you're like, hey, can you, you know, get this to me whenever you have time? That could take me a month, you know? But if you come by and you're like, hey, I need this in a half an hour, all of a sudden I'm done in 25 minutes. And so there are things that, activities that if we gave ourselves a deadline, this simple, I actually applied this to fitness. When all the gyms closed down in California and I had to adapt, and we all had to adapt. So I'm not like a special, like, oh, my gym closed. Everybody's gym closed, right? I started doing home workouts with kettlebells. You can see the friggin' fitness bike that looks like it doesn't belong next to the desk. But my home workouts sucked compared to what was happening at the gym. And I thought about this Parkinson's, law, and I thought about why are my gym workouts so much more effective? Well, one, I'm outside of the house. That's probably a big part of it. But two is I generally give myself a time limit. I go, I'm going to get these 6, 7, 5 exercises done, this amount of cardio. Like these things are going to be done by, in 60 minutes or 50 minutes. So I have to move through it in a faster way. So all I did was download this app on my iPad that's like a timer app and set up rounds like you would boxing rounds and said, all right, cool. I'm doing, 12 2-minute rounds of kettlebell stuff. My workouts changed, my mood changed, everything changed just from having that little ding next thing. I was getting more done in less time. I felt better. And we can do that with anything in life, especially business. We have tools, we have technology. We can use, fire once upon a time was technology. We used to have to chew food for long periods of time. Now we can heat it up, chew it a little faster. So if we use the tools, the technology, the things we have available, we can get more done in less time.
Yes, 100%. And I feel like that's what a lot of entrepreneurs are trying to do. And we said that earlier, right? Like, if you want to get something done, give it a lazy person. Like, look at the remote control. Like, it was a guy who was like, I want to get up from the couch and change the station. It's that. And it's just, being smart and clever with your time. And we're still at a stage, I feel, in society where, and especially in the corporate world, where it's just being there, being present, right? Like it's funny sometimes I talk to friends who have corporate jobs, and like all this office drama, all this like things they like meeting bingos and stuff like that, and all those kind of like bullshit. It's interesting, it's like, oh yeah, there's a lot of time waste there. It's like that your workplace almost becomes like your tribe. Like you just hang out, like so many people you hear. I'm not really everyone. I love my coworkers. It's good for you, I guess.
Yeah. And I think team culture, there's something to be said for that. Do you have I know you have some business principles, but actually that kind of made me curious about culture in general. Do you have like a cultural statement that you tap into with your employees on a regular basis, or is it just like you're all on the same page?
We do like an all hands meeting, like once a month where we go over that. And we learned that really like last year was like a big pivotal shift. It's kind of like you need everyone to be on the same vision, on the same team, and culture is very, very important in a business. Culture beats talent all the time. Hustle beats talent if talent doesn't hustle. And that's really, really important for building our teams, especially when you are remote. Back to is like, what is that North Star that everyone can align to and can follow? And when as a business owner, like one of the things like that makes me proud every single time is like when people talk about we, us, right? And it's like, and the quicker it kind of like becomes a game, right? The quicker, like when you onboard someone, the quicker they say that, it's like, we're doing a good job in culture.
Yeah, man. We together, you said it earlier, you said doing something with people instead of like to them, some version of that. And you can hear it in someone's language. I mean, it's really common if you're an entrepreneur, going back to those 3 things, and you have a sense of going, I can do this better. You have a healthy ego. Like that's an ego thing. Like I can do this better. And that's good. That can be healthy. But when it comes down to all the time, if you're running your business or your job or anything, and it's like, I, me, here's what I want you to do. Things are just less smooth for the most part. And if you want to really watch your life level up, you figure out how to change those statements and conversations into an us or a we, or how it would benefit the other person, and create those win-win-win situations, like a win for the person you're working with, a win for, whatever, whoever's going to benefit the most, like community or something from that project. And then you just by default, you're like, oh, wow, like you get a win, they get a win. Look at that. I got a win from helping others. Pretty basic, but pretty big.
Yeah, I feel like that's a good entrepreneur. It's a good leader in general. Is the one who gives credit to the team. You know, it's like I always say, you take the blame and you give the success, you give the wins to the team. That's the way to lead. And what really, like one big athlete, former Formula One race driver, Michael Schumacher, and I was a big fan as a kid. And I think like now every race driver talks like that, but he was back then the only one who always said, we won this race, we won this, we were here, And then when he made a mistake, it's like, I lost the car. Right? But it was always, there was not one win that was him. It was always we, us, here, the team. And some people got annoyed with that. Remember, it's like, why is he always talking we? He's in the car, he's the driver. It's like, you're not getting the big picture.
Yeah. It's cool, man. I think that's a great way to end this and wrap it up. And hey, maybe we'll do it again. You seem like a pretty cool guy. I feel like I've known you for a little bit now. But this is super fun. Give yourself a plug. So we got Shore Buddies, Instagram, whatever website, however you want to plug yourself.
go check it out. Shorebuddies.com. Potentially the plush of the year 2021. We'll know this Friday. Follow us on Instagram at Shorebuddies, on Facebook, all the social medias. We're now working finally on a TikTok. I heard that's a big thing. So we're probably going to have a turtle or dolphin dance competition soon. I don't know anything about the TikTok, so we'll see what we're gonna do there. But yeah, Eric, it was a lot of fun, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, I'm glad you came by. Malte, dude, I still don't know how to say your last name.
I worry, but there are not that many Maltes that have a toy company.
How do you say your last name? I just want to hear it now.
Malte Niebelschuetz.
Niebelschuetz. Yeah, I just look at it on my phone. I'm like, that's a big ass last name. So, all right, man, it's been fun. Thank you.
Thanks.
See, this is the real secret of life, to be completely engaged with the here and now.
Everybody wants to fulfill the highest, truest expression of yourself.
It was all a dream.
Today is about the power of you.
You've now entered
The Human Derek Podcast.